Thank you all so much for joining us for CharIN Tuesdays, the state of North America, being here to join with us and learn a little bit more about what's going on within the industry here in the North American market. We'll go to the next slide. We want to thank all of our guest speakers, including Vincent Will from the California Energy Commission, Nicole Starr from BMW, Dale Jordan from Ford, Olivier Pruel from ChargeHub, and Trishan Paruma from Hubject. We'll be hearing from them here shortly. First, I wanted to share a little bit about CharIN in case you haven't heard of our organization or don't know very much about what we do. Next slide, please. My name is Erica Myers. I'm the Executive Director here for CharIN North America. And a little bit about our mission. We are promoting standards in the field of charging systems for all kinds of electrified mobility, including automotive, marine, aviation, and mining, and many other forms of transportation that could be electrified. Our vision is that we are empowering the next level of energy and green mobility by supporting not just transportation electrification, but also the systems that support the energy that goes into those systems. We specifically promote CCS, the megawatt charging system, and now the North America charging system. We also support, beyond the standards themselves listed here, we support other standards like communication protocols, including ISO 15118. Next slide, please. As a global nonprofit, we have over 330 members spanning many different intersections of the EV charging industry. And we support, as a trade association, many different things ranging from education activities, testing, training, collaborations with strategic partnerships, and many other projects across the world. Next slide. Here's a little bit of an overview of where CharIN is located, both our headquarters in Europe as well as our regional offices, and a little bit of growth of our membership over the past 10 years. Next slide, please. With that introduction, I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Trishan Paruma, who is the CEO of North America for Hubject, and one of CharIN's many partners and members. Plug and Charge, as many of you know, is something that we think is going to be really critical to supporting the universal adoption of transportation electrification and helps the consumers with payment systems that Trishan will explain a little bit more in detail, as well as the history of Plug and Charge. So I'll turn it over to you, Trishan.
Great. Hi, everyone. As Erica mentioned, Trishan Paruma, CEO of Hubject North America. Thank you, Erica and CharIN, for the opportunity to speak today. If you don't mind going to the next slide. Next one, please. Thank you. So just before I begin, a quick overview of who Hubject are. We are the largest digital EV charging network across the world, enabling plug and charge as well as roaming. Here in North America, we have our headquarters in usually sunny California, but we're getting some rain today in Irvine. 145 employees globally, over 70 countries, over 1 million charging points currently connected to our platforms, $1 billion worth of transactions, and from a plug and charge perspective, 32 OEMs and around 25 plus CPOs using our ecosystem. So I'd love to share a little bit of insight into not only our work here in North America, but just our perspective on an outlook on the market generally. Next slide, please. So before we begin, maybe just a quick refresher. I know there's going to be varying levels of familiarity with plug and charge, but really what plug and charge does is simplify what we call authentication. For the consumer, what that means is they simply plug in without the need to a public charging station, without the need for a mobile app, RFID card or credit card. I believe it's the best experience out there when charging for publicly. And I think why plug and charge using ISO 15118 is so good is for three main reasons. One, it's globally adopted. So consider that the auto OEM is a key component to completing the plug and charge authentication experience. These OEMs obviously work globally, so it means that it's quite easy for them to roll out models in multiple markets capable of doing this because of the hardware on the vehicle. I mentioned the ISO 15118 standard and plug and charge. The ecosystem is built upon that standard, which is a global standard. Again, it provides a level of not just security, but also means that there's a reference point for the industry when implementing solutions. And then obviously scalable and interoperability. So we'll talk a little bit about how it works with roaming solutions, for example. But as you've seen with the numbers I showed you earlier, and I'll share a little bit about how the market's scaling in North America, but it definitely has the ability to provide multiple charging stations, multiple OEM providers, multiple models with the same experience, which we think is important. Next slide, please. So here's some numbers in terms of our ecosystem specifically in North America, and I can provide some color on how that looks in comparison to Europe as well. We're just under 1 million plug and charge enabled vehicles on the Hubject ecosystem here in North America. I think we will tick over to 1 million. Stay tuned in November or December, just depending on vehicles hitting the road. Over 300,000 active users. Those are people that have signed up to use the service and are using it on a regular basis. Over 15, or just under, 15,000 charging stations that are enabled, and around 15 charging networks in North America. To put that in perspective, I think when I started at Hubject and we had one network on the basically doing plug and charge, which was Electrify America. We now have over 15. I think by next year will be over 20. How that compares to, say, a more mature market like Europe. Europe has around 3.2 million vehicles enabled for plug and charge and around 500,000 users. So you can see that relative to market size, I think I did a quick check. There's around 4 million EVs on the road in North America. So roughly a quarter of those are plug and charge enabled. You'll see that users really depends on how often they're using public chargers, but that you can see there's a relatively high rate of penetration in terms of plug and charge use as well. Next slide. So in terms of the challenges that lay ahead for the industry, and I know my fellow panelists will be speaking a little bit about this as well. So I just wanted to kind of frame it for the discussion later. As mentioned, plug and charge is a great solution for authentication. Not only is it simple and secure, but really the driver doesn't have to think about it too much. But what's important is plug and charge really handles authentication, which is verifying the driver's ID. It occurs through a complex exchange of certificates. But what plug and charge doesn't do on its own is handle authorization. And I'd like to talk a little bit about how the two relate. So imagine the analogy, if you will, that authentication is really similar to what you do when you travel internationally. It's a verification of your identity. In this case, the plug and charge ecosystem is operating a little bit like the passport issued by a trusted and recognized authority. To board the plane, however, you do need a ticket which shows that you've had the ability to pay, or a boarding pass. And this is where authorization is super important. And this basically demonstrates ability or access to pay. It also enables all sorts of other solutions like reconciliation of payments and so forth when we talk in the EV charging space. But really, this is not just verifying the driver's identity through authentication, we're identifying whether they have the ability to pay, whether they have a wallet in place. And this is where, in terms of challenges for the industry, we see one, because plug and charge adoption is obviously great, as we've just discussed in terms of a customer solution. But unless you have the connection between EMSP and networks for authorization, the ability to pay, you still run into the challenge of that session not being able to be completed. And that's where roaming hubs like ourselves and others in the marketplace provide a solution to aggregate networks. But that's not to say that there's other solutions as well. Of course, you can connect bilaterally, but that authorization connection is required for the full charging session to complete. And I'm happy to discuss a little bit more with the panel when we have the chance. Next slide, please. So just to wrap up my quick discussion, an outlook for where the market's going in North America. As mentioned, that we see both plug and charge and roaming adoption growing for the reasons we just explained. We're seeing over 60 networks now in North America each day. It seems like a new network. We're also seeing new players coming to the marketplace, which means that we're having that fragmentation that we've seen in other markets in terms of network providers. We're also seeing, in terms of the number of OEMs releasing plug and charge enabled models, almost every OEM has a plug and charge enabled model coming out for their next major EV launch. So that's super exciting to see what the runway looks like in 2026 in terms of more mainstream EVs and more mainstream OEMs coming out with plug and charge enabled models. With that, we see the growth of PNC across networks and across OEMs and models. And we also see, plug and charge becoming increasingly important in areas like fleet and multi-unit dwellings and other areas where, again, that kind of seamless authentication can be quite valuable. We just, at the last festival in Detroit, completed a ISO 15118, sorry for the typo there, -20 test. And we see the interest in -20 really growing, particularly when it relates to vehicle to grid or vehicle to building. We're seeing really big interest from the fleet sector, in particular commercial fleet, for the technology of the next iteration of the standard. And similarly, I think one of the challenges we're looking to address in the next in the year ahead, really, as we move into next year, is providing solutions for legacy EVSEs. So really just, again, touching on the first point of expanding PNC, that PNC experience to as many drivers as possible, because we believe it's, at the end of the day, it is about making the driver experiences as seamless as possible. And we believe plug and charge is one of those ways to do so. Thank you. That's it from me, and I'll hand over to, I think it is Ollie that's next.
Yes, thank you, Tristan. So I'm Ollie. I'm from ChargeHub, and let's get going. So thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, Tristan, for the intro. Next slide. So ChargeHub, we're the universal link behind every charge. We operate a roaming platform here in North America. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But next slide, please. I wanted to dive in a little bit more today in the authorization aspect. So like Tristan said, there's the authentication piece that is handled in plug and charge, where there's the certificate exchange to authenticate all the parties. And then there's the authorization piece. So next slide, please. So like Tristan said, there's different ways to do authorization. There's and let's go through the steps a little bit. So in plug and charge, the vehicle is going to present this ID that's called the EMID. and that represents the user contract. And so the vehicle presents this to the CPO, and the charge point operator can recognize it. So it might be that the charge point operator has a direct connection with the mobility operator, so whoever owns that user. So the CPO might recognize that ID and be able to authorize it immediately or directly. And so that's kind of the direct authorization path. So if that ID that the CPO gets, the CPO already knows about or can authorize directly. And then next slide, please. If the CPO, if the charge point operator doesn't recognize this ID, it can also send it to a roaming platform or a roaming hub. And the roaming hub can then know who that belongs to and go check with that mobility operator if that ID is authorized to charge or not. So this is a slightly different flow where there's not necessarily a direct agreement between the CPO and the mobility operator, but it could go through a roaming platform to make that connection happen. Next slide, please. The final piece that sometimes gets forgotten about, but is very important, is called reconciliation. So next slide, please. So if we think about it, when the driver unplugs or completes their charging session, the driver needs to get billed for that charging event or that charging session. So that's really the mobility operator's role, is to go and collect the funds from the user's credit card or however wallet system they have. But they basically take money from the driver. But then that money has to go back from the mobility operator back to the CPO to pay for the electricity and the service. And so the money needs to go from the driver to the mobility operator, and then from the mobility operator back to the CPO. So that's reconciliation, and that's pretty important if we want this to scale. Next slide, please. So if we think about this roaming connection, the authorization and reconciliation piece, there's really 4 important links that need to happen. There's a technical integration that has to happen between the mobility operator and the CPO. There's a legal agreement to use the services. There's some accounting that needs to be put in place so that money can flow correctly. And then there's this commercial piece. So sometimes how much of the money is going to stay in each hand. So there's really 4 steps or 4 important links for each of these connections. And next slide, please. So if we think about it in the industry, in one simple roaming case, so there's 4 different CPOs. The CPOs sometimes in North America also have a mobility operator with 2 different OEMs. If you count all these lines in the diagram, there's actually 14 peer-to-peer connections. But those are actually 4 different integrations that have to be done: the technical, the commercial, the legal, and the reconciliation or the accounting piece. So if you take that in today's ecosystem with over 60 CPOs, 20 OEMs, utilities, fleets that want to get into the market, the peer-to-peer agreements don't scale. So we have a problem, and I think Trishan also mentioned this, that this piece is what's blocking kind of the main adoption in North America. Next slide, please. So if we take a little pause and look at the European market, the European market started very fragmented. So there's many charge point operators. There's many mobility operators, or EMSPs as we call them as well, electric mobility service providers. And it seems like the industry started with very distinct roles. So there was CPOs that were only CPOs, or charge point operators that were only charge point operators, and mobility operators that were just mobility operators. And really quickly, what that led to is roaming hubs being part of the equation to connect all these parties together. So some of the main ones, Hubject, like we just heard, are operate globally. We have eClearing, JREV, and INAPI, who are main roaming hubs in North America. So there's established roaming hubs there. And these roaming hubs operate differently. I don't want to get into all the details, but on the technical integration side, they have different specifications that they use. Most are now standardizing on OCPI, which is the Open Charge Point Interface. So that's the main roaming protocol in the industry that everyone's standardizing to. Some had different ones. Some of the hubs operate with different commercial and legal frameworks. Some offer financial services to move money back between parties. And some support PNC, some don't. I don't want to go too far based on the kind of public information that's available online, but some like Hubject support plug and charge. Some offer also PKI ecosystems like Hubject. So that's kind of the European market. And next slide, please. If we go back to kind of the North American market, the North American market started with a lot less fragmentation. So there's these very large charge point operators that were vertically integrated. So they had both the charge point operator piece and the mobility operator piece. So when the kind of market kicked off here, there was major big players. So there's a lot less fragmentation, but that is now changing. So now there's a lot more fragmentation, a lot more CPOs, a lot more OEMs are coming into the game that want to be EMSPs. And so this is now much more fragmented. And in North America, there's ChargeHub and Hubject as the two main roaming hubs. And the other thing that's happening now is cross-border. So a lot of folks want to drive to Canada or to the US, and even Mexico now is starting to have a lot of CPOs or have a lot of charging stations being built. So that's something that's relatively expanding now. And so this problem is the authorization problem, and scalability is getting more and more important to solve. But luckily we have partners here that could do it. Okay, next slide. And that was it for my piece. Thanks for listening. We're going to take some questions later, but I will pass it off to the next panelist. If you want to contact me, the QR code is here. But I will pass it off to the next panelist.
Thank you so much, Olivier. And I wanted to just note a couple of comments that I put into the chat. If anybody has any questions for our panelists, feel free to submit your questions through the chat box and we will address those at the end of the webinar. Further, I wanted to just highlight that we will be featuring both Hubject as well as ChargeHub at our upcoming conference and festival, where we have more content on Plug and Charge coming up on November 4th and November 5th. There's a link to more information about this event that we have in the chat box, including the agenda and registration information. We hope to see you guys there. With that, we will now turn it over to Dale Jordan from Ford, who's going to give us an update on what's happening from Ford's perspective. Dale is one of our testers, so we reliably see him at every festival. So maybe he can also give you kind of a quick overview of what they're going to be doing on Plug and Charge at the next event coming up on November 4th and 5th. And he's the charging interoperability and reliability manager at Ford. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Erica, for the great intro. Next slide, please. So I wanted to start off kind of giving some backgrounds on what everything that was just talked about looks like in the field for customers, how they're experiencing it, and sort of what the next steps are, and also be referencing back to some of the problems that were mentioned before. Ford, right now, we collect and analyze vehicle data from all our cars on the road, and that gives us some really good deep insights on charging with a high sample size, where our sample size is basically population. I've seen various surveys and stuff, and as we at Ford started out sort of small sample size and grew, we found we got more and more accurate to what was actually going on, and the data really changed. So we feel like we're in a strong position now to sort of judge how things are actually going out in the field for our drivers. Of course, it'll be different for everyone. But from what our customers see, plug and charge is the most reliable way to start a charging session. Compared to other methods, it results in 88% less failures on your first attempt. That's with third-party activation being credit cards or third-party CPO apps versus plug and charge. So it just works. It's not perfect, and we're going to talk about that, but when customers are using plug and charge today, they're succeeding at charging over 99% of the time. So you hear all of these horror stories and everything, and those are going to be out there, and there will always be someone that has a bad time. But when you consider plug and charge to be the most reliable way to activate a session, and when you have that, things go well. Why is that? Well, for many drivers, charging is new and weird, especially new customers, and there's no standard experience across CPOs. I like to say that if I blindfolded you at a gas station, you could probably get gas into your car. But that would be difficult to do at a charging station without plug and charge. So each step in that process is an opportunity for customers to fail, and we see them doing just that. The beauty of plug and charge is it just sort of eliminates those opportunities for failure. But like we said before, plug and charge is a really good method of authentication, but then you also have the authorization. And we still see a lot of authorization problems. It's not a guarantee fix to charging issues. I had one of our partners call me up recently and said, "Hey, you guys are failing a bunch of authorizations. Why is that? What's going on?" And we said, well, it was a purposeful failure because those were customers whose credit card got declined. So plug and charge can help in a lot of ways, but like Olivier was discussing, there's still a lot of other steps that have to go well for it to work right. So there's always challenges, and we're working to improve those. How can we improve payment processing, that sort of thing? But long and the short is plug and charge works really well when it works. And that is why, next slide. That's why Ford has been a market leader in plug and charge since it came out. All our EVs are capable of plug and charge at no additional cost to the customer through the Blue Oval charging network. That network it covers 92% of all our customers' charging sessions. So only 8% of the charging that our customers do is on a network that's not in the Blue Oval Charge network. So we're really proud of that. And we want to continue to be a leader in the space and expand plug and charge for our customers, which is why we will be expanding current availability up to at least 5 networks in November, with hopefully more on the way. So that's really exciting for us. Right now, we've only got that feature available at 2 networks. So to go to 5 is a big deal, and we hope to go to even more. We've kind of been working in the background to develop that ability with our roaming partners. There's a couple things that have been key to that. The biggest piece is roaming plug and charge through Shell. You saw that web of all the different connections that you have to make. Roaming is, like what was said, how things work in Europe generally, and it simplifies execution a lot. We're also leveraging the SAE EV PKI project to ensure that as we expand plug and charge availability, we'll keep interoperability between certificates so that authentication continues to work. We are set on sort of launching an initial expansion of plug and charge with a couple of networks. But once we get those, our next goal is to add more and more and more. So we're sort of creating this new ability of roaming plug and charge. And once we have that, we think we're going to be able to scale really well, which is why I wanted to use this as an opportunity to reach out to everyone on and say that we're seeking more partners to do plug and charge. It takes more than just the OEM having the technology and the charging network having the technology. So please, let's work together. Let's make those partnerships. Let's get those contracts signed. We would love to work with you and expand plug and charge. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Dale. And just to confirm, you guys are testing plug and charge, correct?
Yes. Sorry, I forgot about the testival. We will be at the testival. We'll be bringing, I believe, an F-150 that's pretty much as is. And then we'll also have an F-150 that looks like an F-150, but really it's emulating our next generation vehicle. We're just not ready to show that next generation vehicle in a public space yet. So we are sort of tearing the guts out. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Dale, for this. And I will then turn it now over to Vincent, who is the VGI principal for the California Energy Commission and longtime CharIN volunteer and supporter. And it's great to see you in this role, Vincent. So look forward to hearing your perspectives on Plug and Charge.
Thank you, Erica, and thank you, Dale, for this amazing data and feedback on Ford's experience with Plug and Charge. Really insightful. So thanks for the intro, Erica. I just want to point out that the California Energy Commission, or CEC, is the agency in charge of energy planning and policy in the state of California. And within it, the Fuels and Transportation Division is in charge of implementing the charging infrastructure that we need to deploy to support the state's goals. Next slide. So on Monday, the CEC issued a press release commenting on Q3 sales of zero-emission vehicles, and they were pretty good. Almost 30% of new car sales are zero-emission vehicles. There were more than 108,000 battery electric vehicles sold in California in Q3. In the same press release, we repeated something we announced before, which is we are now over 200,000 charging ports, public and semi-private in the state. Nearly every Californian lives within 2 miles of a charging station, which means that the focus is no longer on availability of chargers in the state, but more on, are they accessible? Can everybody use it? Are they easy to use? And are they working? So we're looking more at what we call the driver experience. So there's a number of topics in the driver experience. I provided a link to all the work streams of the CEC. You can subscribe and get updates on all of these topics. Today's focus is going to be on Plug and Charge. Before we move to the next slide, just a reminder that the CEC has 3 main levers, 3 actions that we can take defining our policy. The first one is regulatory actions when we have the authority. The second one is funding programs. The Clean Transportation Program is well funded in California. In December of last year, 1.4 billion were allocated to the CTP for the next few years. And then last but not least, it's working and engaging with industry on calibrating the approach to new topics. Next slide. So as was covered before, and again, thanks Dale for providing real feedback from an OEM and real data. The CEC very much supports Plug and Charge adoption. It's the easiest driver experience. You plug the vehicle and a lot of things happen, including authentication. It facilitates payment. It facilitates roaming. Data shows that it improves charging reliability. There are less opportunities for end users to make mistakes. And also, as Dale mentioned, again, with the SAE EV-PKI effort, it does improve the end-to-end security over alternate ways to initiate a charging session. We also note that according to feedback we received from stakeholders, the driver doesn't pay more for a vehicle that's capable of Plug and Charge. And similarly, if you use Plug and Charge at the charging network in California, you will not pay more for the same charging station or the same amount of energy as would otherwise be delivered. Next slide. I think the other panelists did a good job at explaining that Plug and Charge is also not simple. There's a lot of stakeholders, which means that any policy that the CEC articulates needs to be well calibrated. Just as a reminder, we did issue a statement of interoperability in November 2023, so it's already a bit dated, where we point out the different communication links and things that need to click together to enable an end-to-end Plug and Charge experience. We also continue to push for a single connector future for light-duty electric vehicles. Next slide. So without going into too many details, I just wanted to give you a quick update on where the CEC is at with regards to Plug and Charge. So on the first column, you see the regulatory action. Last week, the Commission adopted the first reliability regulation in North America. This touches on uptime, record keeping, and availability of third-party data. So it does have an impact on ability to support Plug and Charge, particularly on OCPP, the requirement to support OCPP, certified OCPP protocol. The state is currently, the CEC, sorry, staff is currently looking at AB 1423, which supersedes AB 123 on the payment, which gives authority to the CEC to modify the payment requirements for public charging. and AB 2697, which was passed last year on roaming. And we are particularly looking at how plug and charge can play a big role in these potential rulemakings. On the funding side, as you know, the CEC runs a lot of grants in supporting deployments of charging stations in many domains, verticals, public chargers, workplace chargers, multifamily units, tribe chargers, etc. And we are trying to be consistent in requiring technical capabilities that are consistent with the state vision, particularly on interoperability. And we are currently considering updating these to move from ready or capable language, all the chargers need to be 59 capable or CPP capable, to something that's a bit more constraining, noting compliance and or certification where applicable. Nothing's enacted, but we are thinking along these lines. And last but not least, on the industry collaboration, we are looking to update the 2023 interoperability statement that I mentioned earlier, as well as issuing clear CC position on plug and charge and roaming. Next slide. And I think that's it for me, and happy to hand it over to Nicole.
Thank you so much, Vincent. And we are really happy to invite Nicole to join this panel as well, with her experience at BMW on implementing plug and charge. And BMW, I would say, has been really great partner in that initiative, not just here in North America, but globally. And so, Nicole, we look forward to your insights and any other plugs you might have on, looking and pursuing CharIN content in this area. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, Erica. So, yeah, my name is Nicole Starr. I am responsible for the standardization and general charge testing here with BMW North America. And I think we can go to the next slide. Okay, so I just wanted to give an overview of the current state of plug and charge in the North American market for BMW. So currently we have over 80,000 plug and charge capable vehicles in the field, with over 70% of those having a plug and charge contract. So a large majority of our vehicles that are capable are going to have a contract in them. And I guess I should say that all of our vehicles are plug and charge, have the ability to be plug and charge capable, all of our electric vehicles. With that being said, most of our vehicles do have 2 or more EMSP providers for plug and charge, with our main ones covering most of that 70% of the contracts. We have seen this year a significant growth in the plug and charge utilization from our customers, with over 54% of our 54% increase for this year alone. And we're seeing that number increase every month, which is really great. As you've all heard already, plug and charge really does make a difference for our customers. It does have a 96% success rate for first time charging for our customers as well. And we are seeing that number go up every month. And we do see about 2,000 or up to 2,000 plug and charge sessions a day. And I expect that as more stations and EMSP providers, CPOs, as everyone moves more towards plug and charge, that we'll see that number increase, not just for BMW, but for the entire industry. So I think we can go to the next slide. Okay. So this is just for how our customers see plug and charge, how we show them what contracts are available to them. We do allow customers to have multiple contracts in the vehicle. Here in this example, we have 2 contracts. We do allow customers to change them in the vehicle as well as in the app, the My BMW app, and you're able to filter then as well for plug and charge capable stations in both the app and the vehicle. We do also, the reason why we have multi-contract is to allow customers more options and allow maybe smaller networks or different networks that have their own plug and charge contract or maybe better deals to then have their contract added to a customer's vehicle. We do have in the US market, because we allow for multiple contracts and we don't have a solid roaming platform here, we do have the ability for automatic contract selection. So that means that when a customer has one or more contract on the vehicle will automatically choose the correct contract based on the location that the customer is at. So if it's an Electrify America contract, it will be automatically selected when you go to an Electrify America station. And this is a US custom solution. It's not something that we offer in Europe, but that's generally just because roaming, as I've already said, and the others as well, the other panelists on the call, roaming is not necessarily as big here as it is in Europe. And for instance, we're seeing more customers in Europe or more third parties providing offers and contracts, which hopefully will be the case in the future once we have a better roaming system in place. I think we can go to the last slide that I have. Okay, so as Dale said as well, plug and charge really is the easiest way for our customers and for Ford to charge. I believe it's probably, if you ask any automotive manufacturer, they'll say the same thing. We want our customers to use plug and charge, plug in, authenticate, and walk away. We currently support 3 charging networks for plug and charge, with more to come soon. We offer multi-contract plug and charge, and as I said, the automatic contract selection with plenty of our BMW charging network partners, and we hope to increase that in the future through roaming. And yeah, let's work together, and hopefully we can get that roaming turned into a possibility for the US market as well. I think that is all I have.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Nicole. And we will bring all of the panelists back on for the next part of our webinar, which is the question and answer portion, the hard part. I promise it won't be super tricky. For those of you who haven't submitted your questions yet and you are interested in asking one of our panelists or multiple panelists a question, feel free to put that into the question box, which is on the upper right-hand side of your screen. It's got the big question mark in it, and we'll be taking those. But first, I want to ask a few questions I've prepared in advance. So a lot of what we've discussed today is plug and charge using DC fast charging, but what about AC charging, and what's the future of plug and charge for AC applications like level 2 or even level 1? I'll turn it over to anybody who'd like to answer that one.
Happy to go first. Sorry, go ahead, Nicole.
No, go ahead, CharIN.
I just quickly, I was going to say that I think we're seeing PNC adoption across more level 2 chargers. I think obviously the priority was really DC, and that was driven by a number of factors, NEVI being one, but also because of their prevalence in terms of public charging and people's use case for fast chargers. But we're certainly seeing in the fleet sector and multi-unit dwellings that AC and plug and charge are playing a really important role. And we are seeing that more networks are now looking at how do they roll plug and charge across AC chargers as well. I would say we'll start to see more AC chargers become PNC enabled.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say from a vehicle perspective, we do support AC plug and charge, so we are ready. Once we see more stations in the field, we hope that that will also be something that we can offer to our customers.
Fantastic, thank you guys. The next question is about ISO 15118-20, and I noticed there's a number of questions related to this in the Q&A box from our attendees as well. What would you envision as the future of plug and charge with -20, and you know, what sort of things does the industry need to do to prepare for that?
I can try and jump on that. The obvious near-term future for -20 is Europe. It's mandated by law over there, so I believe that's 2027 is when it comes in. You have to double check me on that one. In the US right now, I'm not aware of any legal mandate for it, and I also believe that almost none of the infrastructure in the ground is capable of executing -20. I know personally, I think that the US should take a wait and see approach. -20 has some exciting new features, but I think that the best way to help the customer is going to be to let Europe sort of iron out all the kinks in it before we adopt it. With -2, we saw that over time, both automakers and networks got a lot better at executing over years and years and years of development. If we switch to a brand new product, we might, take some steps backwards and lose some customer confidence. I think we'd be much better waiting to adopt -20 until it's been further developed in the field. And then as a side note, it doesn't really have a whole lot of features that help the customer and also increases cost significantly. So it's not something that I'm super eager to deliver.
This is a very strong opinion, Dale. I'm curious to know if
I usually
there's a
have strong
reaction.
opinions.
we know this. Any other opinions from the panelists on -20?
Happy to jump in. I think I mentioned it in my presentation as well. I think where we are seeing some interest is certainly on the commercial side. And to Dale's point, I think that it's still some time away where we would see it across, passenger vehicles and chargers, just simply because it's not backwards compatible. But certainly in the commercial vehicle space, we are seeing a lot of interest simply because of the V2X application for -20. So we have started doing some pilots and some testing with -20 specifically for V2X, both in Europe and here in North America.
Thank you for that perspective. And I do think that we are starting to see some movement towards -20 testing. For example, at the Testivals, we have quite a few chargers and EVs that are going to be testing with -20 at that event. So we're starting to see some movement towards developing products, but yeah, just like anything, will obviously take some time. There's also a question here while we're on this topic about -2 and multi-PKI contract support with plug and charge for -2. So maybe one of you can talk about what you see happening in the field on -2 compatibility. And just wanted to note that's something that CharIN has also been supporting at our testable events for many years at this point.
I can answer that, Erica. So with -2, multi-contract is already supported, and that's something that we support, and I believe we might not be the only ones that support this, but that with the current implementations of 15118-2, multi-contract is already a possibility.
And does -2 support bidirectional?
It does not.
That was another question from the chat. Okay, thank you. Next question I had was, how should we market plug and charge, given how well it's working? We're seeing growth. For example, Nicole, you gave some great stats on growth, possibly through word of mouth, maybe from your customers. How do we get more people to be aware of plug and charge though? And which industry stakeholders should be leading the way on that marketing?
I mean, CharIN has developed a plug and charge sticker or certificate that they do put on some charging stations. We show it in the vehicle. I believe Ford does as well. Dale, feel free to correct me if I say anything wrong about your company. But we at least are showing customers the plug and charge logo, and we hope that more charging stations, as they become plug and charge capable, that they would also be putting the logo on their stations, just so customers can make that association between the two.
It's an interesting problem that's going to come up in the future. You know, I've been working with some networks that are going to be launching plug and charge in the near future, and they've expressed that for the first time, well, this will be the first example of a network where only some of the machines are plug and charge capable in the US. So I think that is going to lead to some customer confusion. You know, like Nicole mentioned, there's the sticker, and I know that Ford uses that same logo, the plug and charge logo, in our app, but it's definitely going to be a challenge for the industry for how to resolve customer confusion around, can I plug and charge here?
I mean, ideally, it would be similar to a Visa symbol on every charging station. You can use your credit card here. This plug and charge logo means that your car can charge here, assuming you have the right contract, or we have roaming and you don't need to worry about which contract.
Yeah, I think
Thank you.
displaying the correct information in the mobility operator system, whether it's an app or navigation, is going to be critical, because not only does the station need to support it, but like we saw in all the links have to be working, and so all those parties need to work together to get that information back up into the mobility operators app for it to be super clear. But Erica, you also asked about marketing, like in general, and I think, we still compare EVs to gas cars, right? Like in the industry, and this is where the experience is better than going to the gas pump, right? Like you don't have to do anything, you just plug in. So I think that's one way probably the OEMs will maybe market this to their consumers, when you have the choice, like, hey, this is a better experience, like you don't have to do anything, you just plug in and go have a coffee or something.
I love that. And to your point about labeling, may also help reduce confusion for consumers if there's legacy hardware, for example, that can't utilize or integrate plug and charge. So that actually leads nicely to my next question: is how should we handle legacy equipment or legacy hardware?
Yeah, happy to have a go at this one. I think it's challenging, as Dale mentioned, from a consumer perspective. I think knowing which stations have plug and charge and which do not is always a challenge for the driver. And then there's a lot of legacy kit out in North America. One of the things that we've been working on is how do we bring that PNC experience to more drivers. And we kind of hinted at this at our global event at ICNC, but we're certainly working on a solution which we've just been piloting in Europe to enable some legacy EVSEs, not all, but some, to be able to have a plug and charge like experience. While it's not as great as the full plug and charge experience that we have on ISO 15118 enabled chargers, what it will do is provide a similar experience for more drivers. And to your point, I think addressing those legacy charges is a major challenge for us as a market, because it is a substantial portion of all the charges that are out there in public right now. So stay tuned. There'll likely be more from us in 2026 on this as well.
Great. Does anybody else have a thought on that?
I could just add that our initial solution is to use OCPI to surface it in the app, like I mentioned. Interestingly enough, the version of OCPI that most folks are using right now does not have a flag for plug and charge in it. So we've been kind of working with our partners to go off script, if you will. We've been using a custom field that is meant to be compliant to OCPI 3.0, so that when that is brought into service, folks won't have to tear up their development work. But that's sort of the nuts and bolts of how we plan to execute.
Thank you, Dale. We had a question from one of the attendees. Could you please provide more information about what factors make plug and charge so much more reliable than credit card and CPO apps? For example, he listed your fact, Dale, about 88% fewer failures.
Yeah, I just want to be careful what I say here. I think a big issue that we've all seen has been around the credit card terminal reliability in terms of credit card activation. I've seen certain examples where those can work really well, but I think that sometimes the hardware is just not necessarily up to the task. And then there's also challenges integrating that third-party payment system into your hardware and your back end. As someone who now operates a charging network, Ford was kind of surprised by how many hurdles there were to like running a credit card swiper. In terms of remote activation, it has its challenges as well. Some networks have like relatively simple charger names, but other networks have, 10-digit numbers for their charger. And we see a lot of customers activating the wrong charger. And as someone with a little bit of dyslexia, I very much understand that.
Thanks, Dale. Any other thoughts on the, go ahead, Nicole.
Go ahead, Nicole.
I was just going to add to that. I mean, we've seen that customers who are using credit cards or an alternative form of payment, that they run into a lot of times a timeout issue, that they plug in and are too slow to activate. And by the time they get to the charger, they pull out their credit card, whatever. We run into a timeout error, and you'll get a nice charging error. And with plug and charge, we avoid that issue. We rule out a lot of the user error by just having plug and charge enabled on the vehicle and on the charging station.
And Olivia, you had something?
Yeah, I think the other thing to maybe be a bit careful is that like when you're measuring plug and charge, you're probably measuring where the customer was able to plug in, right? And then you're getting that first message. But a lot of times with remote activation, like the station can be down, like, and the customer drives up, they don't know, the whole thing doesn't work, and they're trying to activate it, it's not working. So you don't even get to the plug-in, right, where it's broken, the connector's off, or there's no cable. Like that does happen in North America. So I think there's all the like before you go in and can even plug in issues that happen with the other activation methods.
Thank you, Olivier. Next question from our attendee is for Nicole. For multi-contract charging options, does the preferred contract / EMSP / payment method have to be chosen prior to plugging in, or is the option given to the EV driver prior to each authentication or charging session?
So you are able to set a default payment contract, whatever you would like. But in the event of multi-contracts in the car with automatic selection, the car will choose the contract that is intended for that station. So if you have an Electrify America contract, it will automatically choose that one because it knows that this is the correct contract. We also do show in the car when you turn it off and you're at a charging station that's plug and charge capable. We show in our goodbye splash screen, we show the contract that is currently active, so you can also then make sure that you are using the right one. But we have multiple options for the customer to make sure that they're using the correct contract, or if they want to set a default, they can also do that as well.
Great, thank you, Nicole. So we have gotten through all of our audience questions, and I have one final question to wrap up our webinar for today. So many of you may have seen or heard about the U.S. Department of Energy's announcement at a big show a couple weeks ago called Move America, and their interest in seeing plug and charge deployed ubiquitously, particularly for cybersecurity reasons. So what actions would you recommend they take to close the gaps? Plug and charge deployment today? No suggestions?
Are they signed up to come to the Testival in November? Because I think that would be
they will be there.
Time to see the issues happen live and learn about what everyone's doing, because I think that's a great event. Sorry to promote the event a little bit, but I think
no, don't apologize. It's great. Yeah, they'll be there. So if you or anybody else on the call has ideas for them, that'd be a great forum for you to share your ideas. Since we didn't answer that question though, I'll move to another question, which is, are there any missing parts on the plug and charge functional system, like a repository for country codes? Like what work do we have left to do here in North America? Dale.
I've got one that's it's a bit concerning, which is that it was mentioned that your eMaid is how you sort of identify yourself. The eMaids work by having a country code and then the manufacturer code. So for us, it's US FRD. The problem is there's no one sort of enforcing the use of eMaids. So if I wanted to go make Dale Jordan's car company tomorrow, I could use US FRD and there'd be nobody stopping me. I don't know that that's so much a cybersecurity issue as more of a functionality could be broken thing, but that's a potential problem that we are kind of concerned about for the future.
And does Ford have a recommendation how to remedy that?
Yeah, so Europe has sort of a body that oversees the use of eMaids. We could adopt something similar to that.
Okay, great. All right, action item for CharIN and the broader EV industry community. We will close then with that, and thank all of you so much again for taking time out of your day to join us for this webinar. And for those who are listening, we're going to be sending out the recording to all of you following today's call. And thank you again to our attendees for participating in CharIN Tuesdays, and feel free to stay tuned for future events in the fall, and we hope to see you at our conference and festival November 4th, 5th, and 6th. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.